Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale. Now the CRL challenge is started probably by the time that you're watching this video. I am hyped for it, guys. I just shared this morning the top 5 decks to get 20 wins in the CRL challenge. Now, I left out some of the cheaper decks, some of maybe a little bit higher of a skill cap decks, but certainly these are the decks that the pros will most likely use to get 20 wins. If you missed my other video, I shared a Golem beatdown deck played by Flobby, 3 Musketeers played by Surgical Goblin, Botchum playing Lava Loon, Azilius playing P.E.K.K.A. Control, and Bridge Spam being played by, oh I forgot who, but another pro player, Pompeo. So, today, I want to do kind of the same thing. A lot of you guys liked that format. We're going to be sharing 3 more decks. I'm actually going to cheat and share 6 decks with you guys because I'm going to show you 2 variations of all of these decks. So this is the first deck. It's bait, right? It's bait. We'll be watching I think Dhar and Akoda will be playing this deck today. Either way, it's the bait deck with the Valkyrie. Now this is a different version right now on the screen that you guys can use if you want kind of a different variation. Maybe you want minor, no Valkyrie. This is another really popular. You can see 6% win rate. A great deck. This is an Expo, this is the classic 2.9 Expo cycle deck. You can bet your bottom dollar a ton of pros will be using this deck. A ton of non-pros too will be using this deck to get 20 wins. It's a really good deck, and here's another version of the deck right now again for you guys on the screen if you want a different flavor maybe to your Siege deck. And number 3 is going to be, it's going to be the Graveyard deck. You can bait out the opponent's poison by using your Goblin Hut, and then you have free reign to use your Graveyard. It's a really strong deck that's going to be played by Tag in today's video. Now before I get to the replays, guys, just want to give you a couple tips. I mean, these are, old tips. It's old advice that I've used for other challenges, but for this challenge, what you're going to want to do is try to play as early as possible, or maybe even as late as possible. Usually getting in really early is when everybody's using their free entry. It's definitely the best time to play. Now if you don't want to wake up at, given whatever your time zone is, if it's 2 a.m., you don't have to wake up then. You don't have to play the second it comes out, but you do want to get your first shot in the first 24 hours, if at all possible. That's when people are using their free entries, and that's when you run into, let's face it, some of the more unskilled casual players, such as yours truly. So, what we want to do is try to use it as quickly as possible. Another thing I wanted to mention to you guys is please don't feel like you need to get all 20 wins if you're going to get it, right? All in one sitting. Usually, you're going to breeze through a few matches in the beginning, right? Playing easier opponents. And then once you get to around 13, 14 wins, it's going to start getting very difficult because it's going to weed out more of the casual players and you're going to be going against players with real skill, okay? So once you get to that 12-win mark or so, I would take a break at that point and kind of refresh yourself. You might get into bad habits, be a little bit more aggressive than you should be. So take a break halfway through your challenge and then come back, and if you lose again immediately, take maybe another break, all right? You don't want to kind of steamroll those, or snowball, actually, those losses together, right? They can start to add up that way, and you can start to tilt. So don't do that. Guys, those are my best tips for the challenge. Let's go ahead and get into these deck replays. All right, here we are. The first replay we'll be discussing is this one by Dhar and Akoda. He's going to be playing the bait deck that we talked about with Valkyrie. It's a really strong deck, guys, and if you're naturally good at bait, certainly don't be afraid to use this version. It's really solid, like I said. And obviously, starting out with a Goblin Barrel is an appropriate first move, as you saw Dhar do in this match. Now, just make sure that you aim that Goblin Barrel towards the safe spot. It's not 100% safe, but if you get that lower right-hand corner of that right tower where you saw Dhar drop that Goblin Barrel, you can avoid your opponent's tornado, or at least mitigate some of the damage, make it more difficult of a grab for your opponent to activate that King Tower. So with this deck, basically what you want to do, just with any bait deck, is you want to utilize your princess to bait out their log, or to utilize your princesses, get as many princesses on the board as you can. When you don't know what to play with this deck, cycle to princess or play the princess. Now you can see this in this circumstance here, we're going to get a great Valkyrie here. Even though the opponent had a pretty decent tornado, we get a Valkyrie who took that giant down to below half HP. We're forced to NATO that giant and the Night Witch together, but you can see that Princess cleans up very nicely. Again, like we discussed, right? Cycle to your Princess if you have nothing else to do. Where you saw Dhar drop that Princess princess was actually a really smart spot. You want to make sure your princess is hugging in the opposite lane, that king tower. That way, if your opponent sends in a miner, just what happened there to King D, by the way, these are all 12 wins in grand challenges, you'll get your king tower activated. An activated king tower, no matter what deck you're going against, I guess, you know, with Expo being the exception or Mortar, it's going to come into play really, really big for you. Okay, so getting rocket value, as you saw Dhar just do right there, is something that you're going to be relying on throughout this deck, right? Especially against executioners. There's not that many 5 elixir targets going around, cards going around that are super popular, but you want to make sure if your opponent does have executioner, you're saving your rocket for the executioner every time. If your opponent has pump, obviously it's a very safe play to use your rocket against their pump. Even if it's a 3 musketeer player, you should use your rocket against their pump and not save it necessarily for 3 musketeers every time. The reason being is you just can't allow your opponent as a bait player to build up a huge elixir advantage over you. You won't be able to defend their pushes, or it will be at least very, very difficult. So here we go again. We're just going to set up with that princess in front of the king tower, just like we talked about, guys. And of course, using the ice spear is another really, really strong tool. Now check out that left tower, guys. Valkyrie has made it to the left tower. She's taking it down to 987. All of a sudden, we got both towers down really low. The opponent has nothing else to really counter this other than the minion horde. So we're going to go ahead and we almost protected that princess, but we're able to cycle back to another princess. You can see here, guys, how Dhar always makes sure he has princess in hand whenever he needs her. And protecting the princess is probably the most important thing about this deck, really, is when you play your princess, make sure you're ready to protect her. Usually your opponent, if they have a miner, if they have a spell, obviously you can't do anything about it. If they have a miner, be ready to protect your princess. A smart opponent's always going to throw the miner at your princess. Okay, the next deck we're going to go over is ThatOneGuy playing his amazing 2.9 Expo cycle. Now, I'm not saying he invented the deck. Be cool, guys. Be cool. Don't worry. I don't claim deck inventors on this channel. What we want to do is kind of discover his habits and try to emulate those to take to the 20-win challenge. Hopefully, you guys can have success with it. So this is 2.9 Expo cycle. This is probably the strongest Expo deck right now in the meta. If you want to try that funky pump deck, the Music Master deck, that deck was also very popular in King's Cup 2. I actually used it. Really like that deck too. It's going to be a slower burn. So when you're using the pump version of the Expo deck like Music Master, make sure you go ahead and play for the long haul, right? You might have to take all 6 of the minutes allotted to you to win that match, and sometimes you might have to be comfortable with a draw. Speaking of draws, guys, when you're playing Expo, you're gonna get some draws. The cool thing about an Expo match is, even against the most difficult matchups, which are like, you know, against any sort of a beatdown deck that has 2 tanks, like a giant bowler or a, you know, golem Dark Prince, right? When you have, or you know, maybe Dark Prince isn't the best, but you guys get what I'm saying, right? If an opponent has a rocket in a tank, it's going to be very difficult. But the beauty of an Expo deck is that you can lean on the draw. You can really, a good Expo player can almost always lead the match to a draw against a more difficult matchup, and that's something you have to be comfortable doing, especially trying to go for 20 wins in a challenge like this. So let's kind of zero in on this gameplay here. ThatOneGuy doing a very good job defensively. Now notice here, guys, we're halfway into the match. We haven't gotten any damage off of his towers, very little damage off of his towers. And we're using the Expo, we're trying to stay offensive there, but we actually draw out a poison out of the opponent instead of using his giant. Really strange that he didn't use his giant there, but that's something that you have to look out for when you're playing against an Expo, when you're playing Expo against a beatdown user, right? Is have your Expo ready for the one time they make a mistake. You must capitalize on it, and that's exactly what ThatOneGuy did here. He dropped the Expo, and hey, his opponent didn't drop the giant, so he kept supporting it, and it worked out really well. At this point in the match, right, we're in double elixir time. We can just play defense here and almost just fireball, log cycle the opponent's tower, right? And you can see perfect defense here. We're going to use the Tesla right in the middle of the arena, and we're going to play archers on the other side of the Tesla. Make sure you avoid any sort of poison damage. So again here, guys, you can see just like this is really easy at this point. We can defend against anything with this deck. He drops a Mega Minion in the middle. I don't know why he did that either. Hard to believe this is a 12 win, but honestly, ThatOneGuy is really smart, and you can see he's doing something again really smart here. he's putting the Expo a little bit to the side of the lane. You can see it's a little bit to the left of the lane, if you will, the pavement, the tan-colored pavement, right? And the reason he's doing that, obviously, is to go ahead and get the, to avoid the tanks of the opponent, right? It's a really smart, no-brainer move, so make sure you guys do that, especially if you're playing against a beatdown deck. Don't be afraid to play your Expo a little bit to the left if they have Giant in hand. Now, he knew he didn't have enough elixir for the Giant, so he played an aggressive Expo there, and now he gets the Giant out of the opponent. But look at this. I mean, we're in overtime, and it's going to be a long match. I mean, with Expo, like I said, guys, you're going to have to get into the match a little bit. But look at that, 2 Teslas on the board. 2 Teslas. A 2.9 cycle is very fast. There's really no deck in these challenges that's going to be outcycling you. 2.6 hog cycle, no one really plays it competitively in challenges. If somebody does, you know, you still don't have any problems with this deck, right? You can cycle to the Tesla and keep up with the hog, and then you have the Expo as needed, right? So here we go. We're going to get some good fireball value. Whenever we can get any fireball value, we're going to take it here, guys. And you can tell this is pretty much the opponent's last big stand here. He drops that poison. We have the Tesla. We need to make sure we activate it, right? Now, unfortunately, the thing about that Tesla is it wasn't up. It wasn't activated for the Giant when he reached his kind of the range where you can lure him. So again, we're just going to fireball cycle out here. Let's fast forward at this point because, you know, it's pretty much a textbook the way he plays this from here on out, right? We're going to make sure we cycle to Teslas. We always have those available on defense, and just fireball log out the opponent. One more fireball is going to get it done. Let's go 4 times speed here, guys. Again, Archer's on the opposite side of the hidden Tesla. Getting the job done is that one guy. He won something like 44 grand challenges in a row with this deck. Crazy. Anyway, let's move on to the third and final deck of today's video. It is Tag playing the Graveyard Hut deck. Really good deck again, guys. If you like Graveyard, try this one out. It's a really solid deck. I did show you the other variation at the beginning if you want to kind of mix up your Graveyard, but this one is super right now because, you know, A, Spear Goblin Hut is so strong in the meta, and B, it just has a natural kind of cohesion, synergy with the Graveyard kind of baiting out your opponent's poison, because right now that's the thing with Graveyard, right, is that the difficulty with Graveyard is that you can't play it if they have poison because it's a hard counter for a +1 elixir trade. You'd have to outcycle your opponent. So that's why, you know, let me just explain this deck in 2 sentences for you guys, right? Is what you're going to do is put the decision making in your opponent's hand. Do they want to use poison against your hut or your Graveyard? If they use it against your hut, you want to punish them a Graveyard. If they use it against your Graveyard, you want to just keep spamming huts at them, and then they won't be able to keep up with it eventually. So here we go against Isaac King, who's another really good player, Sandstorm Pro, as you can see from his clan name. He's playing the P.E.K.K.A. kind of control-y deck, and we shared a deck, not this version of it, certainly, but the Zappies P.E.K.K.A. version of the deck in the other video that we shared today. So here it comes, Tag's first kind of big Graveyard push. He pushed there knowing that the opponent didn't have poison in cycle. He used the poison on the hut, just like we talked about, right? If your opponent uses the poison on your hut, we'll go in for a Graveyard push. That's exactly what Tag did here. And he came out with, you know, almost half the hit points off that right tower. Just a few hundred shy. But you can see here at this point, we're just going to go ahead and play that E-Wiz, take care of the Mega Minion, take care of the Miner. An aggressive poison by Isaac King there. So he puts Tag in kind of the driver's seat now, right? We do have to stop this bandit, but we have guards at the ready for it. So now we can go in with a Graveyard if we wanted to cycle to it, but we can just play it safe too and play the hut, knowing that Isaac King is still 2 cards away from his poison. So we do go ahead and do that. We drop that hut down, and here we are entering double elixir time. So Isaac King decides to drop a P.E.K.K.A. behind the tower. Let's see how Tag responds. He knows he's kind of short on elixir, so he goes in with a Graveyard here. We bait out the poison from the opponent, and that's good. Now we know he can't poison, so for this kind of defensive sequence coming up, we do get a little bit of chip damage here off this tower, but for this sequence, we know he can't drop poison, so we can pretty much just spam all our troops together here, and you're seeing this right now. I don't know if he's trying to cycle to poison. He's going really aggressively at this point, but he eventually gets there, but he doesn't have enough elixir to use it, right? So at this point, we just have to play smart defense. We use that E-Wiz behind the King Tower, and then we play the guards. A really nice log there, actually, from Isaac King, anticipating those guards, but you can see here, we're able to prevent that P.E.K.K.A. and the Mega Minion from getting to the tower, which is most important. And now, we got the opponent on his heels again, forcing him to use the poison. We're going to use one of our own. We take out that E-Wiz, one swing swipe of that Mega Minion. Meanwhile, some skeletons are making contact to the tower, taking it down to 473. This is such a good match, huh, guys? We play that E-Wiz all the way in the back, kind of stymieing that miner, preventing him from getting a lot more chip damage, and then the opponent says good game here. He kind of knows he's done. He could have maybe used a poison there on offense, but, you know, he's going to save it for defense, but he knows this one is pretty much over. All Tag has to do here is just poison, cycle him out, a little bit of log action, and he gets the job almost done here, taking it down to 39 HP. So one final stand here for Tag, and he will definitely seal the deal here. He's going to cycle the poison, and that will be GG here for Tag. So guys, wishing you a ton of success on the 20-win challenge. I hope you guys get it. I hope I get it. Who knows? But I will be using either 3 Musketeers or Golem Beatdown myself. Huge shout out to Bren Chong, my YouTube partner. Check out his information in the description below, along with Stats Royale links to the top decks, which I will go ahead and edit and add to the description once they are released. So guys, thanks so much for watching. Good luck again, and as always, take care, guys.